Many people have requested that I do a video on the optimal sleeping posture. I certainly understand why this is a question people have. It was one of the first questions I asked Jando Masoero when I started training with him. Though I think you'll find it's not as crucial of a topic as you might have thought, there are some ideas around sleeping posture that we can get some use out of. The first thing to understand is that the system I teach and talk about on this channel is based around conscious guidance and control. When you sleep, you aren't conscious, and so naturally it's rather difficult to have any conscious control. In practice, when you sleep, you're going to end up moving towards your baseline habitual posture. If you're typically shortening and narrowing while you stand and sit, you'll end up overly shortening and narrowing while you lie down as well. We can consciously move out of our habitual posture while we're conscious, but obviously that's not really possible while sleeping. So the best thing you can do for your sleeping posture is to improve your baseline posture. When I asked this question to Masoero years ago, he sent me this study that a physiotherapist named Michael Tetley did on how people sleep in more primitive civilizations. It's easy to see how the impositions of modern life have wreaked havoc on people's postures. It seems that it may be a good idea to try to move towards a more natural or primitive way of sleeping. Tetley outlines a few basic sleeping postures that were common among the tribes he visited. The first two he calls the recovery posture and the reverse recovery posture, where the arm is used as a sort of neck support. He mentions that the tribal people do not like to sleep in the recovery posture without clothing, as the genitals can be exposed to insects and dust. The reverse recovery posture helps avoid these issues. His observations were made of people sleeping essentially on the ground or on a thin mat. Because many tribal people do not like to have their photo taken, he demonstrates the postures. He names two more sleeping postures. This is the lookout posture that helps allow the person to hear any danger. Then there's quadrupedal lying, which is probably the most challenging of these postures. Both involve having the elbows very far out, and quadrupedal lying in particular demands a significant widening of the back. He also points out that in very cold conditions, people will sleep in this folded position on their shins. The shins have very little muscle in this area, and so heat transfer to the ground is minimized. I've tried all these sleeping postures, and I think they work well. They take a little getting used to, but if you're having real issues like pains from sleeping, I would give these a try. All of these postures can easily be used in a bed or on a mat on the floor. I'll note that when you use one of these sleeping postures where you hunch one shoulder to support the neck, you should make sure you're not hunching the other shoulder as well. When you lie on your side like this, it's also a good idea to make sure you're not going way into your habit and hollowing your back by pushing your belly far forward. Though again, as you fall asleep, you're not going to have control over your movements, so improving your baseline posture while awake is likely the best way to address this. I'll mention one other thing I've heard in relation to sleeping posture. There are some who say you should sleep on your back on the floor to help straighten the spine. Interestingly, none of the primitive postures mentioned by Tetley involve lying on your back. He mentions multiple times that the postures he observed allow gravity to keep the mouth shut and prevent snoring. People who sleep on their back with a pillow under their head may be more likely to snore because such a posture would tend to open the mouth. But if you lie flat on your back with no pillow, you'll end up tipping the top of your ribcage and your head back and down. Remember, the back of the ribcage slopes forward as the ribs get smaller in diameter. We want the ear in line with the frontal plane. If you lie flat on the floor, you're not going to keep your upper torso and head elevated. They're going to come back and down. So you're quite likely to end up arching your back. That means you will be straightening the back where you want a curve and curving the back where it should be straight. If you're going to sleep on your back, whether on the floor or a bed, you want some support under your upper torso and head. You don't want your ear behind your sternum, which, when you're lying down, means you don't want your ear lower than your sternum. Having the head back like this will tend to close the airway and will contribute to snoring problems and sleep apnea. We can see from this image used to help explain how to open the airway as part of critical care medicine that the upper torso and head should be propped up so that the ear is in line with the sternum. This is done because it mechanically opens the airway, whereas allowing the head to be back tends to close the airway. So if you're having breathing issues while you sleep, I would either prop the upper torso and head up, or I would switch to one of these primitive sleeping postures. I think the best thing you can do for your sleeping posture is to improve your posture through a system of conscious guidance and control while you're awake. I don't think it's necessary to change your sleeping posture if you're okay with where you're at. But if you're having some real issues in your current habitual sleeping posture, like breathing problems or maybe even genuine pain, you may want to try these primitive sleeping postures out. I'll leave a link to Tetley's paper in the description if you'd like to read it yourself.